Yet all of my both at home and at school. My aunt is a horrible person, and my cousins are obnoxious bullies. I don't really know how to break away from this nightmare. Right now, I'm just waiting to be old enough to escape this horrible family once and for all.
Hi all, I'm Susan, Mary's aunt, and I can easily relate to Harry Potter's uncle and aunt, if their foster son was as bad as my girl. My elder brother was always my best friend. He was the one who really brought me up, not our parents, and certainly not the numerous babysitters they used to hire. Our age difference wasn't even that big. He was only 5 years older than me. But when you're just a kid, those 5 years could really make a difference, you see. Our mom and dad were constantly busy. Their jobs occupied all their time. They left my brother and me to babysitters. Those nannies kept us safe and sound, but they never actually bothered to teach us. So it was my brother who actually taught me to read, write, and later on helped me with home tasks. I got used to him always being nearby, ready to help me in any possible way. Somehow I got lucky, met a nice man and married him at a young age. I bore my husband 3 sons, and my brother was always near to help us. He taught my kids, went fishing with my boys and husband, and was almost a full-blown member of our family. Of course, I hope that someday my brother would find a love of his own. No, I really enjoyed his company, but he did so much to make me happy. So naturally, I wanted him to become happy as well. I was sure that my brother really deserved to be happy. My brother found his true love when my youngest son turned 2. My brother's young lady was a really nice girl, a blue-eyed beauty, calm and gentle. Soon she got pregnant, and in a year, she bore him Mary. Mary was a little jewel of our big family, and all of us really loved that girl. Unfortunately, my brother's happiness didn't last long. It seemed like his life was just getting started. His business grew. He bought a house and learned to be a really good dad. But then a disaster struck. My brother and his wife flew home from another conference, but their plane crashed in the middle of the ocean. No one survived. The insurance paid off, and that was it. Funny thing is, I was really glad that Mary got sick just before my brother's flight, and he left her at home. I really wanted to protect that child, to raise her as a good person in my brother's memory. Unfortunately, I loved her too much, and that was my undoing. So first of all, I adopted my niece. That was quite a simple task. I had all the papers, and no one was actually against it. I knew that it would be hard for my husband and I to take care of 4 kids, but I could do nothing else. Mary was my niece, my brother's only daughter. At first, the girl cried a lot and constantly called for her mommy. I spent countless nights near her bed, catering to her wishes, helping her. My own children were left to nannies and babysitters. Still, the boys didn't complain. Instead, they pitied their little adopted sister. Unfortunately, I was overprotective, and I really spoiled the poor child. Mary was quite used to being the family's greatest treasure. So when I tried to finally assign her some tasks, she took it as a personal insult. When Mary was 6, she was already a spoiled kid. When she wanted something, she did everything she could to get it, no matter what. She held no responsibility for anything. Instead, she was always trying to portray herself as a victim. When she was 10, I tried to involve her into chores. Well, she kind of complied. But in response, she made up the story of a poor adopted girl. Since that moment, she grew fond of portraying herself as a stepmother's little Cinderella, no matter what we did. Mary lived in the best room of our house. She even chose the wallpaper herself. But my niece always told everyone that we made her live in the cupboard under the stairs. When I asked her to wash dishes, she made up stories of how we forced her to do all the chores, and so on and so forth. There are no freeloaders in our house. Everyone does what he or she can. My boys, for example, always do their fair share of work and never complained about it. But Mary told the neighbors stories about her being the only human being in the house who was actually involved in doing chores. According to my niece's stories, all of us were heartless monsters, and she was the poor, exploited child. Worst thing is, we live in a small town. Mary's stories really damaged our reputation. The neighbors started looking at us sideways. The kids tried to bully my boys at school. Even Child Protective Services got involved. Of course, we proved that Mary was making everything up, but that costed us dearly. To this day, I don't know what to do with that girl. The therapist advised to be strict with her, but that didn't work. Besides, I can't be strict with that kid. She's my niece. I love her, and I don't want to make her suffer even a little bit. I really hope that Mary would finally grow up and understand that her life is actually pretty okay. That we love her and that she's really making things up. Maybe then she'd be able to calm down, if even just for a bit. I don't even want to think about her future if she keeps acting the way she is now.
Hi all, I'm Nicole, and my best friend betrayed me. Whatever happens, happens, that's true. But her betrayal had almost ruined my entire life. When Judy and I were kids, we weren't even friends, to be honest. We just studied in the same class and almost never communicated all through.
Carried her in my arms.
But I
She
should.
repaid my kindness very poorly. I'm too old.
Should I watch? What else? What else? Fuck off, ads.
As soon as I opened our front door, the smell of freshly baked bread and cinnamon filled my nostrils. I kicked off my shoes and ran to the kitchen, still soaked from the rain that poured on me while biking home. My mom was brushing the powdered sugar off her hands on her apron, and a loaf of bread was cooling on a rack next to a slightly opened window. "Hi, honey. How was school?" my mom asked me, pushing some of the hair on my forehead back and planting a kiss on my forehead. "Mom," I said, annoyed that she still did that as if I were a kid.
She wanna
"Weren't you
smash
baked?"
you.
I asked as she grabbed a plate and a knife
That's
to slice the
what she
bread.
wanna do.
It's a regular loaf of bread, but I made a
She wants
cinnamon
your
swirl
nut.
that I hope shows in every slice. I wanted to try it out before adding it to the menu, she said as she made a few slices, the swirl showing perfectly in each one. Moments like these were when I
If I was that
marveled
guy, I would put my dick
Although
and fuck her
outside
right
it was
there and
dark,
then.
stormy and pouring rain,
She want my
the
nut,
yellow light
obviously.
of our kitchen, the warmth and the smell of cinnamon made me close my eyes and enjoy the moment. We sat at the kitchen island with our slices of bread and drinks. I dipped my bread in hot cocoa and snickered at my mom muttering something about me ruining her masterpiece. "What's wrong, honey? You look worried," she asked when I was suddenly deep in thought. Earlier that day, our history teacher told me that if I didn't ace the following tests, I was gonna fail his class. "It's school stuff, you wouldn't understand," I sighed. "Boy, I had you when I was a high school junior. You don't think I'll understand trouble at school?" She chuckled at me. I explained to her that I was failing history and that my teacher wasn't lenient at all, and that I could fail the year if I did bad and struggled despite putting in extra work. "Well,
Let's have another
teacher
join.
meeting soon. I could go talk to him," she said, immediately making me feel better. If anyone could convince my teacher of going easy on me, it was my mom, most persuasive person in the world. The day of the parent-teacher meeting came, and I stopped by my mom's bakery.
Let's pause it. Head to bed, wake up in the morning and reg fucking school. Oh hi. Hi again. It's been a week since we last met. As you can see, I bought me a new car and I'm in my gang's territory. So yeah. Okay, press
I knew this voice
play.
he was making. It was the voice he used when he was flirting with girls. Yep, it was starting to dip his head down, so I quickly walked into the kitchen. I saw them jump apart, but rubbed my eyes to make it seem like I didn't. Hey guys, what are you doing up? I asked in a fake, groggy voice. Nothing, bud. Just came for some water. Adrian jumped to get a cup and filled it with water, after which he pushed me out of the kitchen and we went back to sleep on the couch. I really didn't feel like talking to him about what I saw, but as he snored next to me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I usually hung out with Adrian at his house because it was nicer, but suddenly we were always at mine. He kept making up excuses for us to go to mine instead of his. And I had a sneaking suspicion that it was because he wanted to see my mom. Every time we were at home, I caught him staring at her, and he was trying to find ways to touch her, like
She
passing
thinks
her a
close
plate
to
and
you,
licking his fingers,
this could have
or
been
walking
you,
past
bitch.
her and putting his hand
But
on her back. I thought it
not.
was gross, but
You
I
decided
thought that
not
if I brought it
to.
up, it would only become more
Fuck
weird.
her and
One day I
give
was
her
walking
that
home from the
D.
store after Mom sent me to get some baking supplies, and when I came back, I found Adrian mowing the lawn, and he wasn't wearing a shirt. I was so pissed off. I was about to
She's
jump,
obviously
but then
trying to
my mom
make
came
you
out of the house
jealous.
and handed him his shirt. I spilled orange juice on it,
And
and
it's
Mom offered to
working,
rinse it out
Con.
so it wouldn't get all sticky.
I can tell you that it's fucking working.
Answered my question by saying
Dumb
my mom had told him at
humans.
dinner a few days ago to go harder on me again, and instead go easier on Adrian. I was so confused. Was Mom picking him over me? I was furious, so I stormed out of the classroom.
I
and
do
grabbed
not
my
want to
bike.
go back
I'd
to
like
the
to leave
God's
until I reached my
world.
mom's bakery, where
I
knew
want to
she
stay
would be.
here
I was ready to confront her
on
about her thing with
Earth.
Adrian as I burst through the
I
door,
like
but the
this
front of the store was
place.
empty. I figured she must be in the kitchen, so I stalked to the back and swung the door open, only to find my mom.
I like this place. I do not want to go back to the fucking stupid God world
I slammed the door
and
before she could
obey
get
the
to it and sped
fucking
home as fast as I could.
obey the God's
I avoided my
will,
mom
the
and
God's
Adrian for
war.
weeks after I caught them. I snuck out of the house before Mom
I
woke
just
up
want to
and came
stay
very
here
late,
pretty
or when
much.
I knew she wasn't home.
Even
I
though
avoided Adrian like
it's
a plague in school, not even
it
bothering to
stinks
hide me.
here,
I was
I
trying to come
like
up with
this
a way to
place
get
better
or
than
at
the
least I couldn't
God's
stop,
world.
because as far as I knew, they were still making out when I wasn't looking.
The world
History grade
for
started,
gods,
so I guess I
by
got that out of
gods.
it, but it wasn't enough. I
Built
was
for,
packing up my stuff after history
built
one day
from
when Mr.
gods,
Harrison asked me to stay
for
behind because he
gods.
wanted to talk. He sat on his desk, fidgeting nervously
So
as I waited for
yeah,
him to just speak.
you know,
Then he finally did. He wanted to ask my mom to marry him, but didn't know how to do it. Is there anything she finds romantic? Something special?
so yeah, basically,
Felt kinda bad for the
you
guy.
know, even though I hate this place, it's much more better than the God's world.
And I had a plan. As soon as I got home, I started working on it. 2 days later, Mr. Harrison went to order a very special cake, my mom's favorite, on the bakery's website. When he went to the other tab to pay for it, the bakery's new logo popped up. It read, "Nothing better than a cake and a kiss with your son's best friend." Not only did my mom get dumped, but Adrian failed history, which led to him failing the year. Serves them right. "Ooh, your girlfriend is so pretty, Asher. What's her name?" my annoying sister said as she crept up behind me. I was at my computer looking at pictures of gorgeous celebrities. "This isn't my girlfriend. Get out of my room, you pest," I said. "You'll never have a girlfriend anyway. You're too ugly," she replied while running out of my room. She was little, but I guess she was right. Not about the ugly part, but about me not ever having a girlfriend. Although I was already 18 years old, I'd never had a girlfriend. This was my choice, though. I found the girls my age too immature, needy, and boring. I watched my friends get into petty, ridiculous arguments with their girlfriends, and I just shuddered at the thought of me having to go through the same thing. They got upset over everything. If you didn't text them good morning, if you didn't call them during the day to ask how they were, if you didn't help them carry their bags, if you didn't tell them they were pretty at least 10 times a day, I mean, the list is exhausting. But before I continue, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. You know who I did have crushes on, though? Older women. I found most of my female teachers super attractive. The older, the better. I even had a thing for the principal. I'd look at random women on the street and fantasize about them too. Even my mom's friends. Of course, I was too young to ask any of them out, so I just went through high school having the most boring love life ever. After high school, I worked for a year, then got accepted into my dream college. The week before I was supposed to go, I organized a hike for me and my friends. We would climb the highest mountain in our state, then have a picnic on the summit. I figured it was more adventurous than having a lame old goodbye party. We were having an amazing time until my best buddy Greg dared me to run back down the mountain at full speed. This mountain was slippery and covered with sharp rocks, and in retrospect, Greg probably meant it as a joke, but I'm no coward. I ran for about 20 minutes. I stopped for a while to catch my breath and then started again. Suddenly, I felt myself flying. Then, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by worried faces. "Asher, darling," cried my mom as she saw my eyes open. "What happened to me?" I asked. "I'm not sure, but your friends found you blacked out in the bushes. How do you feel?" she said. I hadn't thought about it until that point. I was in extreme pain. I couldn't feel the lower half of my body, and I felt like my arm was broken. "I feel awful. What happened to me?" I asked. At that moment, a doctor walked in. "Hi, Asher. Both of your legs are broken, and you won't be able to use one of your arms for a while." "What on earth were you doing?" he said. I was just running. I don't really know. Did it? The food was terrible, and I missed my... My parents stayed with me until visiting hours were over. I stayed in that hospital for a few weeks, and I hated it. The food was terrible, and I missed my room. I eventually decided to persuade my parents to take me home. "But who will take care of you?" my mom asked. "We could hire a nurse. I already have someone in mind," my dad said. "Okay, well, if you're sure about that, then fine," my mom replied. "Thanks, Mom and Dad," I said while trying to hop off my bed, completely forgetting that I couldn't move. My first night back home was filled with horrible thoughts. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to be home, but my injury meant that I'd have to change so many of my plans. First, I wouldn't be able to go to college that year. Would I even be well enough to walk the next year? I had no idea. I wouldn't be able to go where I wanted, play sports, or have much fun. I fell asleep and had more nightmares about how much my life would suck in the coming months. I woke up to the breeze blowing softly on my cheeks and the birds chirping outside. I felt grateful for a second, and then I was filled with depressing thoughts about my terrible life again. Suddenly, my bedroom door opened. "Asher, honey, I'd like to introduce you to someone special. This is Denise, your nurse. She'll be taking care of you while your dad and I leave for work during the week," my mom said. In walked the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. Think of the hottest woman you've ever met and multiply that by 100. That's how hot she was. I stared in shock, and for a while, I felt like my face was broken too. "Hi, Asher. I'm so happy to meet you," she said. "Hi," I said. I was way too shy to say anything else. A week passed, and I hadn't said much to her. She stayed with me during the day and took very good care of me. She'd bring me my meals, and sometimes she'd tell me funny stories too. I wasn't very responsive because I was nervous as hell. When she left at night, I'd fantasize about her until she came back the next morning. I wished we could have something more, but I didn't know how to tell her. I told myself that I needed to become more friendly. So the next week, I did just that. I told her stories too, and it was easy to make her laugh. She told me she was married with 3 children and on the verge of divorce. But that didn't matter to me. It only meant that she was more mature and that soon she would be completely mine. I was pretty sure I could be a good stepdad too. When I felt more comfortable with her, I'd leave her little poems and tell her how beautiful she was every day. She blushed every time. When I was strong enough to move to the living room, we'd watch movies and eat popcorn together. "Oh, Asher, you are wise beyond your years." "Are you sure you're only 18? She laughed one day. "I am," I said while gazing into her eyes. For a minute, it seemed as if she was lost in my eyes too. And then, in a flash, we were kissing. I couldn't believe this was really happening. "Oh my gosh," I said as we pulled away. "Did you have feelings for me all this time too?" I asked. "From the moment I laid eyes on you," she replied. I know that your situation at home is a bit complicated, but would you consider being my girlfriend? I asked. I thought you'd never ask, she responded. So there it was. I was in a relationship with a much older woman, a hot nurse, the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. My legs were broken, but I felt like the luckiest man in the universe. Later, I started going to a physiotherapist, and I started to gain my strength in my legs. Eventually, I was able to walk with a cane, but Denise still came over to take care of me while my parents were away. One morning after breakfast, my mom said, "Asher, you're almost better. Do you still need a nurse? I think it's time we let her go. You're able to vent for yourself now." "No!" my dad and I shouted. "I can hurt myself badly, so my mom has no choice." Hey, Denise brought me my favorite blueberry cheesecake. We sat and spoke for hours. I couldn't stop staring at her beauty, and I felt so happy that I was getting to spend more time with her. She gazed into my eyes, and we kissed. I heard some noises downstairs, but I paid no attention to them. I was too lost in her embrace. Then, we heard a loud bang at my bedroom door, which was wide open. "What the hell is going on here?" my dad shouted. "I brought you..." Walked out of the door, too.
Well, she never approved of our relationships and ended up finding excuses to drive them away, no matter how perfect they might seem to be. When I was accepted into college, we decided I'd remain at home to save up money. That would allow me to avoid student loans, Mom reasoned. The truth of the matter was, our decision wasn't just about money. She didn't feel ready for me to leave, and I didn't want to hurt her. So staying home while I studied seemed like a good compromise. Plus, she helped me out a lot and paid for part of my tuition. I didn't want to be an ungrateful son, so knowing how she could get,
Can't you
I
tell
decided
she
to try
wants
and
your
hide my
dick?
symptoms when I began
You
feeling
dumb
sick.
fuck.
It was not worth the headache, and I was sure I could nurse myself back to health, no problem. All I needed was a few cups of tea and a whole lot of sleep. The problem began when the fever didn't go down, even after I took some over-the-counter medication and spent the day in bed. Mom arrived home from work, and she suspected something was amiss. I tried to pretend nothing was wrong, but she didn't believe my lies. I looked pale and exhausted, so she touched my forehead. I had to confess the truth. I was feeling awfully sick, but I tried to insist that it was just the flu. Of course, Mom wasn't having it. She wanted to drive me to the hospital right away. I tried to insist it wasn't necessary, but in the end, she had her way. I was feeling too sick to argue any longer, and she was practically dragging me towards the car. She began driving me, and I shivered miserably on the way there. The fever was getting worse, and I felt incredibly sick. I was stubborn, though, and kept telling her that this was ridiculous, that I would get better in a day or two, and that she should just let me sleep it off. Mom, of course, didn't go back to our home. She parked in front of the hospital and rushed me into the ER. I followed behind miserably and sighed as I answered the receptionist's questions. My mom and I sat down in the ER's waiting room, and I groaned as we waited. I told her I'd be better off curled up in bed, warm and resting comfortably, instead of waiting forever in that cold room. Mom patiently listened to my protest, but she still insisted we stayed until the doctor saw me. I was growing more and more frustrated until someone called my name. When I looked up, I was stunned. Standing a few feet away from us was the most gorgeous woman I had ever laid eyes on. I couldn't believe it. She was perfect from head to toes. Her hair was long and wavy, her face flawless, her body incredible. She was dressed in blue scrubs that matched her eyes. I could be...
Let's pause it. Got a Superman car count. 7 o'clock fucking morning, dog. Let's go chill somewhere else on the block. Move the fuck! The school is down there, that way. Chill. Let's chill on this corner cunt right here. Walk the bitch.
Barely speak at all, and must have looked like a mumbling fool. The woman introduced herself as Dr. Vanessa, and I had to try and remember my own name. I think that my mom was the one who told her my name. Dr. Vanessa asked me to follow her into one of the examination rooms while Mom waited outside. I felt my fever higher than ever, and my heartbeat beating in my ears. I thought those were signs that I was falling in love, but in reality, it was my body reacting to the illness. I was getting worse by the minute, but too distracted by my doctor's beauty. I ended up getting admitted into the hospital. Mom didn't waste any time letting me know that she was right. Dr. Vanessa was the doctor in charge of my case, and that made my stay at the hospital far more pleasant. I would make silly jokes whenever she walked into the room, even when I was feeling awful. She made me smile, even through the pain and the fever. She was friendly and brilliant. At first, I thought she was just being nice because she was a good doctor and I was sick. But little by little, I could feel something beginning to grow between us. Dr. Vanessa would stay longer than she needed to in my room. When I began getting better, thanks to the medications, we would talk and talk. I wanted to know everything about her.
She also
I was
wants
surprised to
to
discover that not only was she new to the area, but she was still in the process of moving into her new apartment. She was staying in a hotel room while some issues with her new home were solved. When I asked what neighborhood she was moving to, she said the name of the area I lived in. We ended up discovering that we were going to be neighbors. We were both stunned. It was such a big coincidence. To me, this felt like destiny. Like I had been meant to get sick and to be her patient. Why else would she be moving right next door to me? And we also had this amazing connection. I refused to believe that all of that was simply a coincidence. When I told her this, though, she looked worried. She told me that she did like me, but that I was her patient and she couldn't date me. It wouldn't be ethical, and she could get in trouble. Plus, I was still sick and had to focus on recovery. I was determined not to give up, but I told her I understood. I didn't have to rush things since we'd be living next door to one another. I would keep seeing her after I left the hospital. So, if she didn't want to date a patient, then I'd simply wait until I wasn't her patient any longer. Of course, being that patient was easier said than done. I tried to remain friendly and avoid flirting, I really did. Soon enough, though, I was asking her on a date. She told me no the first time, and the second time as well.
Yeah.
By the third time, Dr. Vanessa laughed and scolded me for being so persistent. She ended up saying she'd go out with me once I was released. Imagine my excitement. It took me a couple more days to actually get better, and it felt like an eternity. We kept flirting all the time, but we never kissed, not until I left the hospital. That night, she invited me over to her apartment. It was incredible to have her right next door, just a few feet away from me. We spent the night together, and I felt like I was in heaven. I was dating the most beautiful woman I had ever met. She was also smart and funny. Vanessa was 10 years older than me, but we didn't care about that. I was studying to become an architect, and I'd be graduating in less than a year. It wasn't as if I was a teenager or anything of the sort. The problem remained with my mother. I knew she would freak out if she knew that I was dating my doctor. It didn't matter if I was no longer her patient. I knew what my mom would say about the whole situation. What would happen if she reported Vanessa to the medical board? I didn't want to get my girlfriend in trouble for dating me. So at first, we decided we'd keep it a secret from those around us. My mom didn't like me staying out all night, but I was old enough that she couldn't tell me not to leave. She did ask many questions, and I tried to avoid giving her incriminating answers. I just told her I was studying late or that I had found a study group. I never let her know that I was dating someone. At least, not until Vanessa and I decided that our relationship was serious, and we would want to take it to the next level. She asked me to move in with her, and I immediately said yes. We were so happy and eager to live together, of course, but I was also worried. This meant I had to let my mother know what was going on. Vanessa and I decided we'd tell her the news together. Mom was very surprised to see my doctor in our living room when she got home from work. She freaked out and asked if I was sick again. I explained that I was healthy and Vanessa wasn't there as a doctor. She was there as my girlfriend. Mom got so angry. She asked how long we'd been seeing each other, and I couldn't lie to her any longer. We let her know that we fell in love for each other while she was still my doctor. Mom did not take it well at all. She accused Vanessa of taking advantage of her position. Vanessa explained that she knew it had been wrong, but that we had really fallen in love. It took some time, but we managed to convince her not to make any complaints to the hospital. That was a big relief for me since I knew Vanessa could have been fired. Mom can be really overprotective, but she's not a cruel woman. She knew that doing that would have been wrong. I'm living with Vanessa now, and my mom is slowly starting to accept our relationship. It's not been an easy journey, but it's all been worth it. Vanessa is the most wonderful woman I've ever met. I can't imagine my life without her. And though Mom's still not too happy about me moving out, she's relieved at least that I live next door to her. I had to make her promise not to come knocking every single day. I still get sick from time to time, but Vanessa was able to convince me hospitals aren't so terrible. I don't need to rush to the ER though. I have my own family doctor right at home. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel.
Hello, my name is Alan, and I have a confession to make. I have a secret relationship with my hot teacher. I was really lucky as a child. I would always be one of the most popular kids in school. I also had the best grades every single year. I had it really easy. It was a breeze going through primary and middle school. Even high school was easy at first. I got along with most everyone, and girls thought I was handsome. So I even got dates whenever I wanted, and always got picked first during gym class. My parents were not so laid back as I was, though. They were really strict and would never be happy with anything less than perfection. That made the time I spent at school so much better than the one I spent with them at home. When I was in school with my friends, everything was perfect. Teachers loved me. Everyone wanted to hang out with me, and I had so much fun. During lunch break, I'd sit with my best friends and joke around. I did well in every single class, and, though I studied, I didn't have to struggle with any subject. However, when I arrived home, my parents began bugging me. Every single small detail had to be perfect in our home. That meant I had to make my bed every morning, eat everything they cooked no matter if I didn't like it, and get nothing but straight A's. Even a B was unacceptable, and I'd be grounded for a long time. Imagine if I were to arrive home with an F. My parents would have killed me. They got mad if my clothes were dirty or my room wasn't always spotless. I mean, they clearly loved me and cared for me deeply. I understand they were raising me the best way they knew how, but it was a bit too much for me. I felt like I never had any leeway when it came to my parents. Mistakes simply weren't permitted. You can imagine the stress I was put through every single day, so it's no wonder I preferred being in school, or that I found
damn,
excuse
she's
to spend
thick.
time in my friends'
Look at that
homes. I
skanky
tried talking
ass.
to my parents about it,
Well,
but
my
they
nun
explained
that
they knew
bitch,
best,
dog.
and that one day I'd understand, and I'd be really grateful then. I thought they were ignoring my feelings, and that led me to making the first big mistake of my young life. I wanted to rebel against them a bit, and that's when I began hanging out with the wrong crowd at school. It happened when my parents decided to move us to the other side of the country, without even asking what I felt about it. One day, Mom announced she had gotten a great job offer and that we'd be moving in a week's time. I had to give up everything I had in my hometown. My friends, my girlfriend, everything I had known. I told them I didn't want to start anew during my senior year at high school, but they told me it was for the best. We'd be living in a bigger house and have more money to enjoy our free time. The problem was that with my parents, I rarely had free time. Not if they were around. So when I started my senior year in a brand new city and a brand new school, I decided I wanted to do something different. Something that would annoy my parents. I began hanging out with groups of teenagers I'd never been around before. They were rebellious and never studied. They also would drink, even if they were underage. Clearly not the kind of friends any parent wants their child to have. They were always talking back to the teachers and skipping class. I felt they were so cool, and they gave me the freedom to actually make mistakes. I now understand how much I was messing with my future by hanging out with them, but back then it didn't matter to me. I let myself be influenced by them, and I stopped making an effort as well. They prompted me to skip class with them, and we'd spend the whole day doing nothing, just hanging around, talking and drinking. I was really a mess. Looking back, I can't believe I let them pressure me into everything I did during that year. My parents were worried and forbade me from hanging out with these students, but I didn't listen. Mom and Dad were working so hard that they struggled to keep me in check as they had until we moved. My grades got so bad that even with my previous history, I wouldn't be graduating at the end of the school year. When my teacher told me this, I completely freaked out. It was one thing to hang out with a few slackers, but if my parents realized I wasn't going to be graduating, they'd kill me. I met with the school's principal and begged for a second chance. I explained how I had ambitions to get into a top-tier college, and up until that year, I had the grades and behavior to achieve it. He looked at my record and agreed that I had been an amazing, hard-working student up until I began hanging out with the wrong crowds. He explained that I would be given a chance to make up for the credit I was missing, but I wouldn't get a third chance. If I didn't get it right this time, it was game over. I immediately agreed and promised I would work really hard. So it was decided that I should stay after school and recover the credit I was missing. If I managed to show improvement before the school year was over, then I'd be able to graduate with the rest of my class, and it wouldn't affect my grades. This meant that I could actually get into a great college and make my parents proud after all. I felt so relieved, but annoyed at the same time. I didn't really feel like staying late every single day and missing anything fun. After all, I wouldn't have the time to hang out with friends or relax at all. However, I was the one who messed up, and this was the only way to avoid ruining my future. I couldn't allow a few mistakes to mess everything I was supposed to do with my life. As annoyed as I might be with my parents' strict attitudes, they were right in a way. I wasn't going to let a single year ruin all the effort I had.
Ah! God help me! I just want to find it! I want to...
Fuck off, ads.
Put into my studies over time. So I ended up agreeing. What I could have never imagined was that I would meet the love of my life in that after-school program. I walked into the classroom, and there she was. Perfect from head to toes, the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen. I must have stared openly at her, because she laughed and asked me to take a seat. Her laughter was stunning, and I couldn't help but smile at her like a fool. I was instantly smitten by her. I realized right that instant that love at first sight was absolutely real. She had dark brown hair and big green eyes. Her smile was beautiful, and she was so sweet and caring. She introduced herself as Miss Samantha Riley. Samantha really did care about her students. She wasn't there to roll her eyes at us and wait until the program was over. Other teachers didn't seem to mind if we learned or not. She asked me why I had to take these classes, and I explained the mistakes I had made. I told her all about how my parents were so strict and how I just wanted to rebel once in my life. I knew I had messed up and wanted to fix it, so it wouldn't affect my future. Surprisingly, she understood completely. Samantha told me she didn't believe that a student should be judged by just a handful of grades. She always focused more on the overall effort they had made through the year. I was so relieved and felt like I had found someone I could confide in. So, as the days went by, we began growing really close to each other.
I locked my car. Head to my place in the housing commission area in Brisbane. Here we are. Walked a bit. Get going. Go on. Put in my pocket can. Head to bed. 7 in the morning. Let's head out, yo. Unlock my car.